Let me start off by saying Overwatch is incredibly fun and quick play, team deathmatch, and any other non-competitive mode. My opinion, what Overwatch does great is the Overwatch League in the full-on casual, chaotic mess. It hit those niches greatly, and although it may not be the best esport to watch with the constant action, not so great camera, and all the scandals that have been going around recently, but it has been steadily improving, and it is incredibly professional and an industry high production quality on par with Dota and League of Legends, if not greater. Now, competitive modes in multiplayer games are incredibly popular. The beauty of them is that you can reap the rewards of victory from your hard work, refining your skill, or just working with a team. They are also incredibly crucial to games surviving longer than a couple years, as hardcore fans and competitive gamers end up being one of the same when ranked is essentially the endgame. Not to mention, these hardcore fans are usually the ones who are logging on every day, buying skins, contributing to the community, etc. Now, as games are becoming more of a live service to be constantly updated, competitive multiplayer games also need a thriving esports scene, inspiring more people to want to get better, thus experience the rank ladder and the endgame. So it's a really big problem when Overwatch has a fundamentally broken ranked experience that is hurting the game from the inside out. I also want to be clear, when I say a fundamentally flawed or broken game, I specifically mean there is a way the game is being designed at a core level that massive sweeping changes would be needed to fix these issues. Now, first let's go over why Overwatch is not fundamentally flawed, and get rid of any scapegoats. I'm sorry, I haven't even been playing Overwatch until around Season 9. I have around 270 hours in the game, so I can't fully comment on the recent balance changes, but this also means I'm not really influenced by them directly. I have heard the complaints of many Overwatch players on the recent balance changes, and really don't let this fool you. Balance changes expose a game, they don't kill it. It brings out what players dislike most about their game. Look at the Revolver in CSGO, the Fortnite planes and the Infinity Blade, every single new patch in League of Legends. It's generally much more of a topic of discussion than a good reason to leave the game. Balance patches also have potential to bring back old hardcore fans, so saying this is a reason Overwatch is flawed is just wrong. As well as toxicity, it exists in nearly every single competitive game. I mean, it's competitive, that's why. I'm kind of sick of hearing what game is the most toxic. Generally, it just ends up being whatever's the most popular competitive game at the time, because that's what everyone thinks they're the best at, but no one really knows anything. Plus, more kids usually end up playing that game as well. Every competitive game has their toxic bunch. This doesn't make Overwatch any worse of a game. Although there is an argument to be made if team voice chat causes more toxicity than no voice chat, but that's for another time. Let's start with the number of people on a single team, 6. Now, this may seem arbitrary at first, but it is one more person than your average 5-team MOBA squad, making this one of the most team-oriented esports available. So if you enjoy team-based esports, this is one of the biggest ones. This also means that there's less pressure and power and more work to conquer the enemy team by yourself. This is not inherently a bad model. It's actually great for Overwatch League when you have a full team of 6 people making coordinated plays. But this is awful when you are not a full team going into the ranked ladder. It increases this feeling of helplessness or a bad team when not playing with a lot of friends. This feels even worse when you are counterpicked and your team is yelling to switch. Not because they think you are bad, but because you're going into an awful matchup. I think something that needs to be mentioned here that really isn't talked about a lot is counterpick strength. So let's say in a game like League of Legends, right? I go in and I go top lane and I get counterpicked really hard. I have a bunch of different options of how I want to take this situation. Sure, I could walk into them and die a bunch of times and blame my team, but even when counterpicked, I can play back, I can build a different build than I normally would, I can TP to another lane and affect it, I can try and bring pressure top lane and bring the jungle top lane but not die, and I can do all sorts of things to help out my team despite me having a major counterpick. Same thing in Counter-Strike. Let's say I have a pistol and the enemy has an AWP. 90% of the time, they're going to have the advantage because they'll have the range, they'll have the one shot. It's going to be better for them generally. A smart pistol player can sit around a door and wait for them to come around. Hopefully they miss the hipfire op shot, and then the pistol player has the advantage because they're right in front of them and it can pop off a bunch of shots. When it comes to Overwatch, the counter pick strength is incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. Because when there's a Mei on the other team and say I pick Genji, Mei's not going to be away from her team. Any decent Overwatch team worth their salt is going to be conglomerated together on the point or on the payload, or they're always going to be around each other. They're really not going to be split up. So I'm almost always going to have to deal with Mei and the rest of the team. So it doesn't make sense for me to stay playing Genji when I can switch. And this creates toxicity because you have the players who play Genji and say, no, I can win this despite the matchup. And then you have earnest players will say, well, you can play that matchup, or you could play Pharah or McCree and basically be as effective as you were before, but you don't have to worry as much about Mei. And now you can do more with less effort. So when you have expected toxicity, a high counter pick strength, and an ultimate based, less individualized type of play, you start to see as time goes on why people are leaving Overwatch for other games. Why so many people are complaining, despite the balance patches and despite all the different things that go on with nerfs and buffs. People are genuinely leaving the game because it is incredibly frustrating to play over and over. And the only people who continue to play are the hardcore, the true faithful who will love the game no matter what. And I'm not making this video for these people. If you love Overwatch ranked and you don't care about a thing I said, go play it. Honestly, please. Because I don't want this game to die. People have invested so much money into the esport. It's one of the biggest things. So many different Blizzard IPs are struggling right now. Overwatch shouldn't die. But I think it's destined to. And I think that's Blizzard's own fault when they created this game, how they created it. I think maybe there definitely could be some things they could do to help fix this. Adding a full 6v6 mode where only teams of 6 can play against each other, or maybe just lowering the ultimates down to where you can barely use them as much and it becomes more about individual skill than just charging up your ult all the time. It's a mix of how the game's always been and how it was designed from the ground up. And that's why I think Overwatch is fundamentally flawed. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.